Our next guest and our second keynote speaker for the day is Dr. DennisRebelo. We want to welcome him to the stage. Dr. DennisRebelo is a professor, speaker, and career coach. He's the creator of the peak storytelling model, his research-based method for crafting the narrative of who you are and what drives you. In his new book, Story Like You Mean It, Dr. Rebelo helps you learn to communicate with ease and connect with others by constructing a self-narrative with intention and purpose. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
So I'm not going to ramble too much because I know we're going to hop into your video here shortly. And then after that, you have a presentation. So when we get that pulled up, I'm just going to let you run with it.
Sounds good. So are we ready to roll? Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great. So my name's Dr. DennisRebelo, and I'm going to go at a pretty good clip here. We're going to show a video in a minute or in maybe 15 seconds. There's probably a little bit of a delay, so hopefully that's enough.
Such a simple question. Or is it? In reality, tell me about yourself is pretty tricky. It's filled with amazing opportunities, but also pitfalls. The way you answer it could excite, inspire, or make a deep connection. Or it could turn into a missed opportunity to lead a team, land a job, or get into the right school. The right answer can accelerate trust and highlight your unique value. The typical ho-hum answer leaves your audience never thinking about you again. In Story Like You Mean It, Dr. DennisRebelo lays out a research-based method, the peak storytelling model, for making your answer count. 10 years in the making, peak storytelling is used by entrepreneurs, CEOs, athletes turned nonprofit leaders, advisors, and thousands around the world to confidently tell their story and showcase their value and worth. Get your copy of Story Like You Mean It today and never have a humdrum, meh, should've, could've, would've, tell me about yourself moment again.
Well, there we go. All right. So we're off to the races. So I'm going to speak over these slides. And the reason why I'm here as a professor of technology, leadership, and management, as well as a career coach, I'm here because the hardest thing you'll ever have to do is tell your story. And Crystal and I had a great conversation about this. And what I really want for you is that you're able to tell your gaming story and why your gaming story truly matters. So you heard from Aman all of these different connections between adaptability, right? Like a mental muscle of adapting, being able to communicate. And these are all skills that you've figured out matter. They matter greatly in your remote world, which, by the way, is how human beings work today, right? But the world thinks, hey, what are they doing gaming all the time? Well, we're thinking about them. What are you doing working all the time, right? So the deal here is I'm going to give you some tools to help you guide the development of a story where you can feel really proud of who you are because your worth and your value matters right now. This is a college fair. Your grades might be in. Your SAT scores, if they apply, or ACTs are in. The only thing you can control is your narrative, and you've collected a lot of experience as a gamer. So let's get to it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is why it's really difficult. So I'm literally, I'm a professor, so I'm a geek. I did all kinds of things in my life. I rode BMX bikes, as I told Crystal, before the X Games, before it was fashionable. But I also played with lasers in my basement and created holograms. I was always experimenting and discovering, much like you, if you're a gamer, you're using exploration, communication, you're organized. Well, this is the organization of why stories fail. This doesn't just happen to students. This happens to adults. And adults have paid me over the years to help them with their career development, mostly telling stories, even though they already have degrees and experience. So if you look at the Start Here map right here at the top, you'll see that everybody knows, hey, I have to tell my story, right? I have a personal statement for my college essay, a narrative, a story, what's my deal, call it what you will, you have to say it. You also might have to interview with somebody, like Aman, for instance, and he's going to want to know, well, why should I choose you? What matters about you that has value and worth? Well, this is what happens. Now, this is research. I did this in Oxford, England, or presented it for the first time there. This is what happens. There's a story, you have a desire to tell it, and then you go to an unclear start. Why does that happen? Look at that right box. You can see that there are all these lived experiences that your brain rakes through saying, oh my gosh, what should I tell Crystal? I really like Crystal. She does good content. She's really cool. She's kind of funny. She's laid back. She's introverted just like me. And then you go, hi, Crystal. And then blah, 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 blah. It's an unclear start. It starts with hi. Then you go, oh my gosh, what I was going to say. Oh, I really like your sweater, right? Or that sweatshirt's cool. Hey, is that your jacket behind you? And then you're like, oh, what? And then it's a rough unfolding. Before you know it, you're looking at her verbal cues. and you're accelerating. The time seems to be like going by too slowly, quickly. You're awkward, boom. You realize you only told part of your story as to why you love gaming, and that's fair, and it's so cool. And then you have a motivation to tell it again. The only problem is in the real world, nobody gives you 15, 16 more tries to say, hey, I goofed up, you goofed up, we goofed up, we all goof up. But you goofed up your story right now. Come on back, no problem, hit reset, I have more time. Nobody does that. Next slide. So this book is based on research, right? But it's a book and a storytelling guide. And it ties into an ancient diagram, really it is. It's like 60 years old, or at least the work is, that still holds true today about motivation. So we're gonna talk about motivation for about 40 to 60 seconds. This is probably the shortest bit on Maslow you'll ever get, so buckle up. So here's the deal. You're at the base of the triangle in life. You need food and water, you need to eat. You need water, you need to hydrate, right? Sometimes you need coffee. Sometimes you need good snacks from the ritual motion people. Oh, then you need safety. You can't do this in the woods, in the wild. You need to be in a house, in a room, you need to be safe. So you need shelter. Then eventually you want to belong, so you create friendships online. Esteem, you start to feel good. You get some sense of achievement, and then you help other people feel good. That's what Maslow said was the hierarchy, very much a ladder on top of a triangle, of how we are motivated as human beings. Next slide. This is really key because I was thinking about, how does somebody really self-author, tell their own story, right? How do you crack the code to that? Since everybody's goofing it up, CEOs, sports people will stumble a little bit in transition, and as sports people, and I've known a lot of them. I actually was one of the founders of the Sports Mind Institute. So I get sports people. I was invited to interview folks like Tony Dungy, CEOs of NFL teams and MLB teams. I mean, it's a wonderful space, but you have to be able to tell your story. Now, self-authorship is all about cognitive development. In other words, having evidence of the thing that you say that you want to be. Right. So if you don't have evidence, that is moments, we're going to get back to this in a minute, moments, or maybe 3, then you're just talking about aspiration. I really want to be, I'm really passionate about, I don't, come on, right? We've all been there. We've heard people like that and we go, yeah. You don't have any cred. So you need some blue dots. We'll talk about those. Those say, hey, you have evidence that you're a particular person. The next thing that we know about self-authorship, writing your own story, that's really important is that when you learn about yourself, that's intrapersonal, you can answer the question, who am I anyway? If you don't have that inside research, I call it me-search done, very, very difficult to answer to the outside world. Intrapersonal relationship, no, interpersonal relationships, where you have relationships with Crystal, with Jessica, with Aman, right? You have to know yourself and have evidence of that and present it to someone else. So that's self-authorship in a nutshell, like 40 pages of research in like, 70 seconds-ish. Okay, so now we need a formula because you're at the crossroads and we need you to be able to author your life. Next slide. So how are we gonna do this? This is the peak storytelling map. So this is something that I came up with. I took my dissertation, I looked at it, which was about work-life storytelling to get you to psychological wholeness and engagement. So I thought, well, that's really a great title, right? Phenomenological storytelling, but who's going to buy that book? So I realized that I needed to get this out to the world. I was teaching public speaking at the university. I have a practice that coaches executives and people in transition. And I said to myself, whoa, if we could put everything in a map, right, that I know and distill it and codify it, wouldn't that be really, really cool? Wouldn't it be great if we could organize all of the things in a dissertation or my research or my practice? And I realized I could. And this is the peak storytelling map. So I want you to think about your life for a minute. You're probably like, where's he going with this? Come on, Prof. Come on, Dr. D, what's up? Here's the deal. You're living your life as a gamer and you're having all of these experiences. ... Some are blue, some are maybe colorless, maybe some are yellow, some are orange. Blue just means, for the sake of reading the whole book, just to give you a taste, a blue dot is a really formative experience. I'll give you a real example. It might be that you never communicated and you had to communicate to somebody for the first time. You're a natural introvert. We've all been there. Maybe we all are that way, but we don't have to stay that way. That's just temperament. And when you overcome the obstacle of feeling weird communicating, which we've all felt before, even to people you don't know, that actually is a hero moment. Okay, so that's the base of the triangle, because you overcame an obstacle in your life, feeling like somebody would judge you for communicating or sharing something, and you communicated anyway. And that's awesome. And the first time you did that, if it was really pivotal, that would be called a blue dot because it had a connection to something in your life, a moment, not a zone of activity, a moment. Because you've heard this phrase, connecting the dots of life. Great stories do that, but nobody actually gives you a map. I was very frustrated with this. I like to game things too. How can you game getting better at story if nobody gives you a map? So what I also realized, just at this hero level, there are lots of these things. Not just communicating when you didn't want to, but it could be overcoming maybe an obstacle such as, I don't know, you didn't want to be in a certain math class and you had to talk to a friend to get tutoring help. Or maybe you had to stand up to a bully, or maybe you overcame an injury, or maybe you moved and had to adapt to that new environment, much like Aman was saying, many people have to do inside the game. Maybe it was the first time you had to adapt your plan while you were gaming, and that was a big deal. And you're not used to adjusting. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, what did it give you in terms of an experience? Well, we'll get there in a minute. So those are all hero moments. It's just about you. You're not saving anyone else's life. You're not doing anything else for anybody. It's you. You're positively selfish here. Okay, folks? The next thing is about belonging, just like Maslow's hierarchy. It's in the middle. Belonging is not really belonging here. It's collaborative. So this is what you're doing when you're at your best, right? When you're gaming, you're doing all these really cool things. But the most formative experience, right? The one that sticks out the most in your mind, it's like a stamp, boop, right on your brain. That's the one I want you to find. In the book, we teach you how to do this. And that is a real winning experience because it usually lights the fuse to this top bit, the virtuous story or moments. And these are the moments when you say, I really love this thing. It would be immoral for me not to do it. For me, it's teaching. For Crystal, it's sort of curating content, right? For some people, it's being a nurse. For other people, it might be, it could be volunteering at a food shelter, right? Or a food sort of bank or shelter. Whatever it is, you have to know how the dots ladder up to get to the heart of living, which is the top of the diagram. Okay, this seems like a lot, but it really isn't. You have 9 dots in your life, 3 from each level, and I'm going to show you how we dissect them. Next slide. We don't do it this way. We don't dissect your brain from a neuroscience standpoint, and we don't make funny pictures like this always. We just do this for a quick break because I know I was speaking a lot about things that are new to you. Your brain is more complicated than this. Next slide. That's the break. Okay, back to the diagram. So now the question is, why do you have 3 layers, Doc? Well, what I learned through my research and my practice is that at any age and stage of life, a 16-year-old, an example would be, I have a 16-year-old student who's not 16 anymore. She's almost 20. And her name is Hannah Ung, UNG. She came from Cambodia. She was in my live class using a digital online tool that we had to supplement it. This is before the book was out because I started digitally, just like you live digitally, just like we're doing this digitally. And she came to me after class and said, hey, Doc, I connected my dots. I gave my peak story. That's when you have a dot from each level. You put it together equals peak story. And I told it to my story to the Rhode Island Foundation. And I got, I got a scholarship. I went, whoa. Hey, that's great. You got a scholarship. So the scholarship, how much was it? $20,000. Wow. She said, yeah, at any school, unrestricted. Yeah. Wow. For 4 years, she said. I said, wait, that's 80,000, Hannah. So when you connect the dots of life, you may actually get a scholarship. It may be from some foundation. It may be from us because we're going to do one. Not that much money, but just a little bit just to get you started. And there's some other contests that you'll learn about. Next slide. Okay, these are all different words that we present in the book that you have. We call these mental muscles. Leadership is influence, exploration, receptivity, organization, adaptability. Discrimination means analysis or being analytical or logical, seeing differences, creativity, and communication. We really unpack these in the book, but just know that we load the book up with language that can really help you in your essay or your interview. Next slide. Back to this, because this looks really complicated. But if you isolate it to 1 dot on each level, 1 dot really looks like this. Next slide. This is called the story stamp. And this is a tool I came up with because as a psychology person who studied phenomenology, which just basically means studying the mind through subjective lived experiences, I realized that anybody could do this fancy thing that PhD doctors and PsyDs could do if I just taught them. So I'm really democratizing a way to unpack your life, all right, which is really cool. So what's really neat about this is that if you look at a blue dot in your life, like when I had a cervical sprain in my neck when I was riding BMX, or To use another one, I give you another quick one would be, oh, this is an interesting one. I won a contest for my science fair project. Okay, well, I can unpack what are my competencies, where was the place, motivations, and people. So every experience you have actually has 4 ingredients, every blue dot. And when you unpack them, you can understand the richness of them. Next slide. Okay, and then the book, and me through the book, because it's very conversational, this book, is that you actually can identify, this is called the 4 square, like a theme that emerges through all of those different components or ingredients. For me, it's a speaker. It happens to look a little bit like this, right? But because I love to give people voice to their stories. Next slide. And then I discovered that, this is really connected to like archetypes, right? Which I help you find in the book, which, I'm a little bit more of a sage wizard in service to others, but you'll find other language that will help you really sort of personify who you are. And you'll learn that your story isn't just a story, it's a series of stories, and it's your narrative over time. Next slide. We're going to wrap this up in a minute now. All right, so time flies, right? So this is you now. We don't have any information about you. Your story is worth something, right? And we need to have you fill that out, figure it out. And so there are wonderful ways you can do this by stealing from this presentation, but there's also the book, and I think you're worth it. Next slide. Some people are really excited about the book. This is the Chief Diversity Officer at Carnegie Mellon University. I remember the first lecture I heard from a Carnegie Mellon professor, just they're rock stars. And they love the book because it really creates inclusion at all levels. This is Joe DeSena, the CEO of Spartan. And Joe also thinks the book is great because life is about obstacles. And he runs the largest obstacle course racing company in the world. So I wanted to share that with you because these are people who are like adults, very accomplished. But by the way, they both have relied on me to help with their stories and their transition points. And you're at one right now. And I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. Next slide. So you have raw experiences. And this is just a quick cheat sheet, right? Do you know how to actually identify them and how to actually bring them together? Well, maybe this bit will help you. Maybe what I did today will light the fuse. So you start to think about those layers of blue dots in your life. And if you need some more entertainment and fun, the book is also really the more complete guide, of course, because I can only do so much in 18 minutes. And it's really been a pleasure to be with you. Last slide. So exciting that we're number 1. Well, it's just great to be to win. You know what this is like. You're all gamers. Your gaming story absolutely matters. It holds value and worth. And this is sort of the gaming book to storytelling, right? That I decided to democratize. And I was just so thrilled that the folks at Ritual Motion said, hey, you're kind of one of us. Like I don't think they said this way, but I thought that they were saying, because I read body language, you're a little geeky, you're kind of fun, you have systems, and you're pretty hyped up about the story thing. And you're a college prof, come on board. And so I said yes. So it's been a pleasure. This book has been just really like from speech awards to other awards that we've seen around creativity and self-help to communication reference. I can't believe it's hit so many different high points, but it's because I put the work in. And I didn't do it to tell my story. I did it so you could tell your story. Because how you change the world and someone's view of you is one room at a time. Which room? The room that you're in. So Peter Block uttered something like that, which I evolved, and I want to cite him. But it's really important to give voice to yourself and the rich experiences that are part of who you are. Crystal.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet. I'm just jacked up. I only had 18 minutes, 17 minutes. I said, I'm going to do this. Let's go.
Hey, it's like I said last time, we could probably do this for hours.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much again for joining us. I posted a link to your website. If any of you are interested in buying Story Like You Made It, there is more information at that link there. Can
I do a teaser?
Please do.
Yeah, we have a $1,000 scholarship and 2 $500 scholarships that you're going to learn about through Ritual Motion. We had a brainstorming session, and it just made sense to reward people so you can share your peak story after you build it, do the hashtag thing and all that jazz. So hopefully I'll see you online, and I'll be able to hand 3 people a check to just help out with college books and keep you motivated.
Awesome. See there? Huge incentive. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Rebelo.